I had a whole thing mapped out for the month of April. I had a lot of things on my plate, and I wound up having life happen. I wound up getting pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
And it set me back and it caused me to think. And it really just reinforced, as an entrepreneur, that you need to have backup and that you need to have plans and that you need to have what I call financial defenses. Because we do special needs financial advisory. I have a brother-in-law who has autism. And so I understand that, and I got involved with that early. And I received a referral. There was a couple, middle class. They had a daughter who was born profoundly disabled or otherly able. And they came in. And even though neither one of them had ever earned more than $55,000 a year or 60, I think, each one separately, they made the decision when they first got married that they would live off one salary and literally invest the other.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Whenever they inherited money, they turned it around and they invested.
Mm-hmm.
They lived in a very simple, very modest home, extraordinarily modest, didn't drive expensive cars, didn't waste money on anything. When their assets rolled over, it was shocking. Okay, one person had tried another program and she and her husband had gotten into quite a bit of consumer debt. She borrowed money from her family and she was paying it back at an extremely accelerated rate. Great, but I turned to her and I said, "Do you have an emergency fund?" And she said, "No, I'm paying off the debt first."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Wait a second, what happens if either one of you can't work?" And she said, "Why would that ever happen?" I said, "Because life happens."
Life happens, right?
And she got very offended. 2-3 weeks after the shutdown started, she called me up and...
Hey, family, this is the Thrivewell journey. Look, life's too short to just get by. And 2025 is the year to persist. We're here to grow, build, and thrive. This podcast is all about powerful stories, real talk, and practical steps to help you level up in every area of your life. Now, if that sounds like something you need, don't just watch, be a part of the journey. Let us know you're here. Do us a favor. If you're listening on the podcast platform, download the episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you never miss an episode. And as we always say, let's make thriving our new norm.
Yeah. Beat up, bullied, and dunked on. Beat up, bullied, and dunked on. Bullied and dunked on. Yeah. Let's get it.
Monica, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I'm glad you're here because as we were doing research on you, I was like, man, she has so much knowledge that we can really absorb. And I'm really excited to find out the knowledge that you have. But before we get in to the conversation, what's on your mind and on your heart that you would like to share with people?
Okay, so life happens. And we were just discussing this before, but I had a whole thing mapped out for the month of April. I had a lot of things on my plate and I wound up having life happen. I wound up getting pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
And it set me back and it caused me to think. And it really just reinforced, as an entrepreneur, that you need to have backup and that you need to have plans and that you need to have what I call financial defenses. Because without them, you're much more likely to get knocked down. It's so much easier to move forward from where you are to where you want to be when you have those guardrails up. So maybe you stumble, but you don't fall. Or if you fall, you get up a lot faster and you're not hurt. And there's a lot of this going on. There's so much fear and pain right now about the economy.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to help people refocus their minds and their energies and their thought process so that they can navigate this.
Yeah.
I really think that fear is just, we're not built for it and we need to be able to use it and conquer it. It's a tool, but I don't want people living in fear. I've seen too much of this, and that's part of what's motivating me as I move forward.
Nice. I was going to ask you, I think if you have the knowledge of something, can that, especially with finances and the economy, can that help dissipate some of the fear that people are having?
It absolutely does. Because it makes you look at something with clarity and say, okay, I understand what that is. And even more, I've thought about it and I know how I'm going to move forward through it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, if I have a plan even if it's tough and if it's hard, it's a heck of a lot easier to let go of the fear than when I don't have a plan. When I have a hard time, it's when I don't know how I'm going to move forward, when I haven't planned for something. Now, obviously, you can't plan for everything and you still have to move.
Hmm.
And the only thing for me that helps clear away anxiety or fear is movement. So what I focus on with people is shifting how they think, feel, and act with money.
Think,
Then
feel,
I
and
take a
act.
very cognitive approach to it. You can change those patterns if you change those thoughts, become aware of them, shift them, reinforce them. And I work with people on that. And then here's the thing, it takes time. But as you get that biofeedback loop of success, your feelings about this shift and you're much more empowered and you make better decisions. And even when you make a mistake, you learn from it. So you haven't lost. You're
Right.
still winning because you've learned and you move forward. So you cannot go where your mind hasn't gone before. What I want people to understand is they can wrap their minds around what's going on, find their peace, learn the skills, and know that no matter what happens, they're prepared to move forward.
Those guardrails. What inspires you and your passion for financial education and purpose-driven wealth that you talk about?
There's a lot of this. I realized my parents got divorced when I was 6, and my mother had pulled herself up from nothing. Her parents were very badly hit during the Depression. There wasn't enough food in their house. They divided the food, and she got less food than her older brother.
Hmm.
Okay. Very traditional household. And my mother married well, and she gave up everything in order to have a family, for which I'm grateful because I'm here.
Hmm.
But when she got divorced, all of her financial fears came crashing down on all of us. And it affected me. And I'll give you a stupid example of it. Like when I start something new, I want to have a new outfit on. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
I feel more confident going forward with a new outfit. When my mother was between second and third grade, she got a job somehow. Shaker Heights, Ohio public school system. Someone there paid her to help out cleaning up textbooks, doing things around the school. That's how she had the money to pay for her school clothes and shoes.
Oh, wow.
So she got that first job then. So for her, she felt more confident if she was in a new outfit, and I absorbed that. And
Uh-huh.
there's so many things about our relationship with money that we absorb and we're not even aware of it.
Yeah,
So that's how that started, if that makes sense.
it does.
And then as I moved, I started off life in my professional life doing economic research. And let me be blunt, I hated it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. If I'm crunching numbers and they don't mean anything to anyone and nobody's going to do anything with it, why did I spend 8 to 10 hours of my day, time I'll never get back, doing
Yeah.
something that doesn't mean anything? So around about 1997, I was pregnant with my first child, and my husband went to get life insurance and got declined. And he had a health issue at the time. And my father sent me down. My father was a doctor. And he said, look, the men in his family die early. So it was a challenge to turn around and get a new policy, which we did, that we could afford. But it was one of those things that really showed me the power of actually having a financial advisor who actually cared enough to think it through, to find a solution.
Hmm.
And so I saw that. And as I worked independent contractor with different women businesses, I saw the power of money and the power of choice.
Hmm.
And I thought, let me start down this path. And that's when I went over to Merrill Lynch and became my own advisor.
Nice.
I started on the advisory process.
Nice. And when you're talking about families, that led me to the question that you talk about, was it the two different families? You have the surgeon
Hmm.
and then the middle class couple. And how did that impact you? And can you talk about that story?
Absolutely. So when I was almost brand new, I got 2 referrals. One was a surgeon who had had a stroke, and he had been extraordinarily well compensated. Beautiful wife, beautiful 4 children, stunningly gorgeous, beautiful people, kind people, good people. But if it wasn't for that long-term disability policy that he purchased through work, he and his family would have had a very serious problem.
Mm.
Okay. That policy got them through. And that's what it's designed to do. But given his age at the time, he hadn't really put it away. He had spent what he had earned. He had enjoyed every single moment of it. Face it, med school is hard, residency is hard. They want the rewards, and I understand that. Okay. It's very, very hard to defer gratification and build up wealth when it's just so easy to go out and buy.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I do special needs financial advisory. I have a brother-in-law who has autism. And so I understand that, and I got involved with that early. And I received a referral. There was a couple, middle class. They had a daughter who was born profoundly disabled or otherly able. And they came in. And even though neither one of them had ever earned more than $55,000 a year or 60, I think, each one separately, they made the decision when they first got married that they would live off one salary and literally invest the other.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Whenever they inherited money, they turned it around and they invested.
Mm-hmm.
They lived in a very simple, very modest home, extraordinarily modest, didn't drive expensive cars, didn't waste money on anything. When their assets rolled over, it was shocking how much they'd built. They built it in 25 years. No, 30 years. 30 years. And they had millions.
Mm-hmm.
And they went back to work voluntarily. They didn't have to go back to work when their positions ended in their 50s. They were okay.
Yeah.
So you have to understand, like at that point, I've been told about the Millionaire Next Door book.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, it was about 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I pulled it, I bought it, and I looked at it, and I realized this is real. This is the reality. Wealth is very, very quiet. It whispers. It's not flaunt. It doesn't flaunt. Celebrities may flaunt. Okay. But when you're building wealth, most of those people literally don't want to flaunt it.
Right. Right.
And so the other thing that people need to understand, the doctor thought that his income was wealth because he assumed naively that there was nothing that was ever going to stop him from being able to earn that for the rest of
To
his
earn them. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. 70% of us will have a disability event at some point between the ages of 18 and 66. So you have to think about that and think, what does that mean for me?
Mm-hmm.
And then also you have to think about the fact that those early habits, if you maintain them,
Mm-hmm.
make growing wealth that much easier. But what you have to do is to take income, defer gratification, and then turn around and use the system to build wealth intelligently. So very funny that middle class couple knew the system, knew their investments, knew what was going on, had their estate planning done and reviewed every 5 years. Literally, they were all squared away. They had mastered the system. The other couple did not.
Mm-hmm. You know, you talk about the deferring of gratification.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's in a mindset, right? So how does a family that is the next door family that could possibly be a millionaire, how do they begin to look at their situation and say, I could be that next door millionaire?
Okay, so what it is turning around and having a shift. Seeing the money, not in terms of what you can buy,
Mm-hmm.
but seeing it as a tool that you can use to build. So when I look at things, I look at my car and I see it as basically a washing machine with wheels.
I like that.
Okay, and I'll be honest, I bought the car that I have because I needed something that was reliable. I'm basically alone at this point in North Texas without extensive family around, so I need something that's reliable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I look at it and I'm like, this is not a showpiece.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also remember my largest client when I first started, incredibly generous man, incredibly compassionate man, entrepreneur. And he made a point of hiring people that he believed in to give them a chance. But what he did was he tested me. He had me meet him at a Starbucks. He got there early. He saw what car I was driving when I drove up.
Mm-hmm.
And he watched how I behaved and how I acted towards the staff at the Starbucks, the baristas.
Mm.
He was looking to see who I was when I thought he wasn't looking.
Yeah.
And I drove up. There were other people at the time who were buying Mercedes-Benzes and BMWs. in the program at Merrill, brand new, trying to project out what they were not. And they were saying, oh, I'm just setting the stage. This is who I will be.
Yeah.
And he looked at me. This man had a 7-year-old Acura that he gave to his son, bought himself a brand new Prius at the time because he wanted to see if he could get more than 42 or 43 miles per gallon.
Right. I guess.
Okay. So he called me one day at the office and I'm like, okay, it's him. He's like, I just want you to know I hit 44 miles per gallon on this thing. Now, he didn't keep it very long.
Sheesh. Yeah.
Anyways, when he retired and moved down to Florida, I wound up talking to him and his wife, and he had bought a very, very nice convertible. And his wife looked at him and said, you don't need that. Within a couple of months, that was traded in for something a lot more modest.
Mm-hmm.
They don't flash. They don't flaunt. They don't care. Money is a tool.
Is a tool. Yeah.
And when you wrap your head around that and you learn how to use it in management, like, are you afraid of your computer? We use these tools all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You think about all the tools you use for everything you do. Are you afraid of them?
No.
Okay. So why are we afraid of money? Why are we afraid of investments? Why are we afraid of understanding our taxes? Why are we afraid of risk? It's because we don't learn it.
We don't know it. Yeah. It's an education thing, I think. As I, become more understanding of the fiduciary world,
Right.
it gets less scary, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But I think for regular folk, it's a world that people don't want to really travel in. It's like I go to work, get my income, and take care of the things I need to take care of, and then just kind of do that over and over again. Is there a benefit in just the humdrum of just kind of living your day and income just coming in and you just living your day? Or is that just a detriment and people should get more education on their finances because of maybe retirement and things like that?
Okay. Here's the problem with all of that. The question you have to decide is, are you comfortable having your future in the hands of somebody else? Okay. So if you're not in charge of your finances, somebody else will make those decisions for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How comfortable are you with that? Is that the way you want to live?
Mm-hmm.
And there are some people who are like that. Here's the thing. Where do you go to get good information? Where do you go to get good coaching? Where do you go to find good advice?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's very, very difficult. I've seen good advisors at every firm.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen other people that, quite frankly, it's a bell curve and I have to deal with that. Okay. That's my industry. But there's a lot of fatigue because people get abused and they try to go to people they know, like, and supposedly trust, and they don't necessarily get what they need.
Okay. Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, like, you go into a BNI or you go into a chamber, oh, people hire those they know, like, and trust. Well, how do you know that these people have money? Well, they're driving around in this and they look like they have money and they say they have money. And the reality is, on average, the people who truly have money do not flaunt it.
Mm.
So they're not the ones saying, look at me, I've got my Beamer. Look at me, I've got this, I've got that. No, they're usually the ones driving the 7-year-old car that they've taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In the house that is modest but extremely well maintained, totally paid off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who has rental real estate, who has all these different things, but they never, ever, ever show it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And it's very difficult to find the good advice. And so therefore people get fatigued and they just burn out. And I
Yeah.
understand that. My whole program, I realized back in about 2011, I ran a program for my kids' middle school, and it was what I called economic and financial reality. So before we got into anything with investing, we were just talking about money and concepts.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized through there, the industry estimates that the financial illiteracy rate, people who don't know how to manage the system and how to work with this, is somewhere between 70 to 80%.
Yeah.
Excuse me. It's somewhere around 80%. And I watched that. And I realized it really is multi-generational. We're probably about at the 5th generation of people who literally live in a system, interact with the system, and they don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So at this point, it's nobody's fault and everybody's fault.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
question is, what do you do to go forward? If you don't like the idea of, if you don't have a plan and you don't have a path, any road may get you there, but you may not like the destination. So if that's not something you're comfortable sitting with, how do you find what you need? And I remember it was right at the start of the shutdown. And I had several phone calls that really, really, really shook me. And sometimes they were people who had never managed their money. They'd let it ride, and all of a sudden they're 6 months away from retirement, and they experienced a 40% correction.
Mhm.
Now, it did rebound, but they had never managed it. They had just let it go. And then there were other people who were trying different programs. Like one of them was trying another program. I'm sorry, I'm running on a little bit, but
It's okay.
okay. And one person had tried another program, and she and her husband had gotten into quite a bit of consumer debt. She borrowed money from her family, and she was paying it back at an extremely accelerated rate. Great. But I turned to her and I said, do you have an emergency fund? And she said, no, I'm paying off the debt first. And
Hmm.
I said, wait a second. What happens if either one of you can't work? And she said, why would that ever happen? I said,
Hmm.
because life happens.
Life happens, right?
And she got very offended. 2-3 weeks after the shutdown started, she called me up and she had been let go
Hmm.
from her position. And what the result was, it's like, look, I applaud you for doing the debt, getting rid of the debt. I applaud you for going through that process. But if you don't at the same time fund that emergency fund, if something happens and you're not prepared, you're going to go right back into debt and then some. So it really is a question of actually learning what you need to learn and managing forward. So I'll give you an example of something. If you can't afford to not work and you have a job working for somebody else in particular, the first thing you do is you buy long-term disability insurance. Okay. If the employer offers it, it should be done. You need to pay the premiums, and there's a reason for this. Okay. You need to pay the premiums, not the employer. But the second thing is, if you do a group policy for pennies, okay, literally, I've seen people pay less than a Starbucks drink. I've seen people pay, mid-level people pay somewhere between, like 10, $20 a month
Really?
in a group policy, in a properly structured group policy, depending on how much they earn, even if it's $100 a month. If that could replace your income in the event you can't work due to illness,
Hmm.
think about what that would do for your family.
Here on the Thrivewell journey, we talk a lot about not just surviving, but thriving. And a big part of that for me has been understanding my health on a deeper level. That's why I partnered with Live Good and brought it under my company, Orion's Health. Not just because I believe in the products, but because I've seen what they can do firsthand. I've walked through some hard health chapters in my life, including cancer and a kidney transplant. And I know what it feels like when your body's working against you. That's why we're offering 2 free tools that help me and can help you too. First, go to myfreehealthreport.com/Orion's Health. Take our quick health questionnaire and get a personalized report created by Dr. Ryan Goodkin, Live Good's Director of Product Development. It's clear, actionable, and totally free. Second, visit myfreedetox.com and get a free chlorophyll and zeolite detox bottle with your first product order. It's a gentle, natural way to clear out toxins and start fresh, something I personally use and stand behind. This isn't just a sponsorship, it's part of my mission through Orion's Health to help people thrive in body, mind, and spirit. Of course, always consult your physician before starting any new supplement or health regimen. Your body is unique, and your healthcare provider should always be part of the conversation. The links are in the show notes. Now tap in and take your next step toward thriving.
Okay. And the reason why you need to pay for it and not your employer is because if you pay for it and you need to use the policy proceeds, they come to you without tax. They come to you after tax.
Yep.
If your employer pays the policy premium, the employer deducts that premium as a business expense. You get the policy proceeds, and it's taxable. So instead of living on, let's say, 2/3 of your income, you're living on 2/3 of your income that's now.
It's not tax. And that right there is Okay, first of all, that's very great knowledge that people don't know about. Many people don't know about, and it's something that is part of the financial education that people should learn or get to learn. Now, when it comes to creating this emergency fund and kind of saving or having something like that in place, when you, how do you get both of those things done when you're at a certain financial level?
Okay, so the first thing that I do with people is I say, okay, we're going to take a deep breath.
Hmm.
Wherever you are, you are. Okay, there's no condemnation. I want you feel the pain, and that's why you wind up looking for help. Okay, so there's no criticism. Whatever happens, happens. I've seen pretty much all of it. Okay, and everybody makes mistakes and everybody falls.
Hmm.
So let's just start with that. First thing that I wind up having people do is I wind up having them take their personal money, their personal account that they use to pay bills,
Hmm.
and I wind up linking it to eMoney, which is our financial planning software. Okay.
Hmm.
It's owned by Fidelity. And what they do, what it does is I don't want them to think about it, but for the first, let's say 6 to 8 weeks, we're going to work on two things. One, building up those financial defenses,
Hmm.
looking at that and being really proactive. And two, looking at the mindset, understanding what risk is, understanding it just communicates to you.
Hmm.
Okay. And looking at that and building out that mindset and learning how to shift how you think and feel so you shift how you act.
Yeah.
Once we get to that point where we're done with that and the defenses are built, we'll go in, and it usually has about 2 months worth of data, and it'll show people exactly where their money is going by
That's good.
category. And a lot of the banks have this on their system too. You can find this on the banks.
Hmm.
But what I find is that if I ask people to tell me how much they're spending by category, they won't do it.
They don't want to
If
look.
I, they won't do it. It'll stop the process down.
Right.
It doesn't do them any good to have me do an audit. What I will say is, what percentage of your income do you think you're spending on restaurants? What percentage of your income are you spending on by category? And that usually is very, very helpful for people because they'll say whatever it is, and then we compare that to what actually is.
Yeah. It's important to
Okay,
get the what so about your finances.
correct. And so you start to see it, and then we start working from there. So we will wind up doing a debt snowball where we walk people through what it's going to take to resolve the debt. And at the same time, and the fastest way to do it, I want them to pay the least amount of money. And they learn that in part by focusing on that interest rate. Why? Because I always want them to look at the interest rate before they borrow.
Yeah, it's important.
Okay. I want them to learn to look at that because that tells them how other people see the risk they're taking on.
Okay.
Okay. And so we'll do that. And at the same time, they have to also commit to funding an emergency fund.
Hmm.
Okay. Emergency fund is cash. It's not invested in a mutual fund. It is cash on hand. And I want it in a separate account. One of the things that I will teach people is that, especially in the beginning,
Hmm.
every account, this is a little bit rigid. I'm going to tell you that.
Okay.
Okay. Every account has a goal, one goal. Every goal has a time horizon, two parts to it. The two parts are until the goal and then in the goal.
Okay.
Okay. So
I see that.
what I mean by that is, let's say you're buying a house and
Yeah.
you need a down payment. The goal is to have enough money to get to the down payment. The time in goal, once you've paid the down payment, you're done with it.
Hmm.
However, retirement is how long before retirement, and then how long in retirement.
Right. Right. Right.
Okay. So that's two extremes. And then you have a risk tolerance for it. And the risk tolerance determines how and what you can invest in.
Okay.
Okay. So your emergency fund has zero risk tolerance. That is something you need in the event something goes wrong yesterday. So it's cash. Now, with entrepreneurs, one of the things that I tell people is you have to be rigid about the separation between your personal money and your business money. And both of them need a financial plan. Both of them need a debt resolution. Both of them need an emergency fund.
This is true.
Okay.
Facts.
Yeah, they are. And they're a little difficult to wrap your head around. And I get it. I'm in business too.
Yeah.
So
It takes something.
yeah. And I'll give you an example of something. The first time I saw some of this stuff up close, I was about 17 years old, and my father's first cousin, great guy, loved him to death. He was a chemical engineer. He had some patents, and he went into business with somebody who was the business side, and they were equal partners. And back in the 70s, when they did this, they created a succession plan, and every couple of years they updated it. Well, when I was 17, he had a heart attack. Okay, now he made it through and he was fine, but the succession plan kicked in. They had a life insurance policy with a disability rider on it.
Nice.
And within 30 days, he was bought out of his shares of the company.
Is that what he wanted?
That was what was set up in the succession plan. That's not necessarily what I'm going to suggest that people do.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is they were prepared, and most business owners are not. And if your biggest asset is your business and something happens to you, it's like sharks in the water,
Mm-hmm.
and you lose that biggest asset. So the smartest thing you can do is schedule it in your calendar once a year to review your succession plan. What do you think the business is worth based on the financials? Where are you? How would you sell it? If something happened to you, what would you do and how would you want it done? Because if you want to sell a business, it takes 2 years. And unless you are financially prepared to keep the business running, you're going to lose 80 to 90% of the valuation of your business if you're going to be able to.
These are great knowledge nuggets, especially for entrepreneurs. And speaking of that, like I have a question about how can entrepreneurs become more aware of their emotional triggers around money, and especially when it comes to if you get sick or death or things like that.
Yeah, that's one of those things that I walk people through in the program. But it's one of those things, my own getting sick last month caused me to stop and think about what I was doing. And what I'd like for people to do is to become a little bit more proactive and think about, okay, how many of you know people who aren't here anymore through no fault of their own? I mean, I lost a 26-year-old colleague to a motorcycle accident a few years ago. Okay. I know a young lady who was at Starbucks, adored her, energetic, vivacious, so determined, had been adopted, and she's got a medical issue that's going to stop her from working. She didn't buy the disability insurance.
Mm-hmm.
She now has a huge financial problem. Okay. So it really takes opening up your eyes and saying, wow, this happened. I'm no different. I know I'm special to me. I know I'm special to the people around me.
Right.
But how would I cope with that? And here's the thing. When you go into business for yourself, you're taking on that risk of going out there because you want that reward and you want that control.
Mm-hmm.
So look at it from this way. Control those decisions to the best of your ability. When you master some of this stuff, you protect yourself and you make it easier to move forward.
Yeah, I see that. Talking about moving forward.
Okay.
In this, you alluded to it earlier in the conversation, what we're going through now. What do you say to people who had Ks and that's kind of where it's at right now? And people are looking at, what's happening in the stock market and things like that. What's your advice to them about their 401k and what's happening in the world right now?
Okay, so let's start off with something. 401k advisory is really very, very tough. And the government really restricts a lot of this because it's where a lot of people have their money.
Yeah.
Okay. So understand something. First off, you always have 4 choices. You can leave it alone. You can roll it over into a new account. If you get a new job or open up a new business, you could roll it over into another retirement account that you choose or another business, or you can take it out and cash it out.
Mm-hmm.
If you do that, you're giving up the tax deferred space and you're taking risk. But one of the things that I look at is that we've had an unusual period of time with the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's gone up a lot. We haven't had the corrections we normally would have. And to see this level of growth over time has been fabulous for investors, but it doesn't mean it's going to continue indefinitely.
Right.
regardless of who's in office, regardless of the situation. It's been atypical. Okay.
Okay.
So it's great and it's wonderful, but let's hold back and think, what was the goal of the account? How much time do you have until you need the money?
Hmm.
Okay. Where are you in that process? What's going on in your life? And most of the time I would look at people and say, look, let's say you're 40 years old. Okay. If you don't need the money, leave it alone. Okay. Leave it alone. You may want to look at some of the investments inside of it. Do they match what you want? Okay.
Hmm.
But let's take a look and see. But generally, I don't like to see people cash out of retirement accounts. I
Yeah.
really don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at it this way. It's something I say to people all the time. Your return, your real return, is that nominal return minus your fees, whatever they are. Okay. And you're always paying some sort of fee.
Some for, yeah.
You always are, minus inflation. And inflation is a very real thing, and people don't understand that. Okay. And minus taxation. And the biggest chunk of that up front is taxation.
Mm,
Why would you do that to yourself?
yeah.
When people take money from retirement accounts, don't like because they have to, because they're retired and they're required to take it out, and they don't spend it all, which is great.
Hmm.
And then they turn around and they invest it in a taxable account.
Hmm.
They're not going to grow as fast as they would have, even if they had been in the same investments, because of the taxation issue.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I look at retirement accounts, and my basic premise is, for most people, it stays where it is. I want you to really, really think long and hard before you move.
Yeah. And people don't necessarily really have this kind of intellect in the financial financial realm. And this is why they need people like you, right?
Well, unfortunately, advisors look at rollovers and they look at retirement account money and they say, wow, this is where most of the money is. I want to bring that in. And
To
so
their
that's part of
account.
the reason why the government is saying we have to really document when we talk to people. You have options. Let's look at the investments in your 401k. Your fees are going to be significantly lower there than they are elsewhere.
Hmm.
If the investments are good, if you're comfortable with it, let's talk about why you might move it or why you might not. Now that there is one other thing that I want to say. I worked with a client who unfortunately was dying, and she's since passed. And she, like a lot of us, had accounts all over the place. So wherever she worked, she had a 401k. And what she wanted to do was to clean all that up and put it into a consolidated space to make life easier for her family once she was no longer with us. So I understand the desire to consolidate, and that makes a lot of sense. If you find that your financial life is in pieces, it's all over the place, okay, getting organized and putting it together so that you can proactively manage it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there are options there. Your current employer, if you're working for somebody else, may allow you to roll the money into there.
Okay.
Okay. So one of the things that I will do with people is I will say, okay, and this is planning. This is not the Wealth Academy. There's a hard line between the
There's a
two.
difference, yeah.
I will do for them let's get reorganized, and I'll do a package for that. So if anybody wants help with that, I'm happy to help. And we just sort of go in and in 30 days, get it organized, get it consolidated where you want it so that you know where everything is and you feel more comfortable managing it.
Nice. Nice. I want to talk about kind of a wealth mindset for entrepreneurs. And you talk about income and difference between income and wealth. Why is income not the best indicator for financial freedom?
Okay, because there's lifestyle creep.
Yeah.
Okay. It's so easy to say my income went up. I'm going to go out to eat one more time a week.
Yeah.
It's so easy to not structure it so that when the income goes up, you're putting more into the 401k, or you're putting more into your Roth IRA, or if you're self-employed, you're putting more into your solo 401k. There's so many different options. And unfortunately, I love it when I see people's incomes increases, but I want to see that they're investing more. I want to see that they're building more. I want to see what they're building out. taking the income and turning it into something that pays you is the goal. Okay. So that's part of it. And it's the mindset piece of it's just so darned easy.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
good.
It's one of those things. Jordan Peterson made a comment that inner peace comes from order. And for most of us in the country, our financial lives are disordered. So
Yes, sir.
accounts are all over the place. We don't know where things are, and we're not really aware of what we're doing on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. So let me give you an example. I had a client who not only had a job, but had a solo hustle that was making a lot of money, tremendous amount of money. And he got himself into financial trouble because he wasn't watching what he did. And he knew himself. And we talked about this because he made this decision on his own. He knew himself. So what he did was every morning when he got up, the first thing he did was he logged onto his computer, logged onto his bank account, and looked at his balances. And then he looked at what was programmed to go out to pay a bill and made sure there was enough money there. And by looking at it every day, he stopped the unnecessary spending. That was the technique he used. Okay.
It's good
And
technique.
then it was an emergency thing for him.
Okay.
Okay. I recommend that people get a whiteboard calendar. This is for me. And I have one outside of my bedroom door in the hallway. And I have my business stuff and I have my personal stuff. And I see what's going on and I can see the flow of my week and I can see the flow of my month. Okay. Some people want to do it electronically. I'm visual. So the question is, where is your mind? Like, what would work for you? Okay. And it's really a question of monitoring what you do. So I will schedule every week an accountability moment where I will sit down. I will literally create a little ritual. Okay. I used to walk the dogs, come home, take a shower, sit down with my Starbucks. That's my one bad habit. I admit it. I have one.
Everybody has one.
I have an
At
emotional
least.
attachment to that company. There's a lot of reasons why, but I sit down with it, I log on and I look at what's going on. And I want people to do that, to set up a time where every week, no matter what, especially while they're in that beginning process, they know exactly what's going to happen. I coach people that are managing money for their elderly parents to know when the bills go out and set it up to go on automatic payment. And that way you can check it midway through the week or midway through the month, but you have one day in the month where you take a look. Let's say you can schedule it the 25th, the 26th of the month, where you know what needs to get paid and you know the account where it's going to get paid from, and you make sure there's enough money in there. So the money stays in investment accounts or whatever accounts, but the one that pays the bills is that one account where it's there.
Yeah.
And you can see what's going on. And that way it's not so overwhelming.
It's good hearing you say that because you're a professional, first of all. And second, I do some of those things now. I remember, earlier in my years,
Right.
when I probably didn't care, or I had to learn, right? I had to learn about finances and my financial obligations to not only myself, but to other people and things. Now, like, it's a daily thing for me.
Right.
Because I have to know what's going on, especially business and also personal. But I like the idea of keeping it more visual and having whiteboards because I think I'm a whiteboard kind of guy, like to be able to see it.
You and I are the same generation.
Yeah. So
yeah, my kids look at me like I've sprouted horns.
Right. They're like,
what is this? Not yours, not in front of your bedroom, none of your business.
Don't worry about it.
Right. Absolutely.
Oh, man, that's good. What lessons do new entrepreneurs often learn the hard way when it comes to money?
Okay, the first thing is that they need to have a financial plan for it and an emergency fund for it. And most of us bootstrap when we first get started.
Right.
Okay, and I get that. I really do. The second thing is have that fallback position. I really want them to have that disability thing or that fallback, because without it, it could be devastating for you and your family. Okay. Monitor everything. And especially when you first get started, it does make sense to check that balance on a daily basis.
Yeah. Because you never know.
Well, it helps you. Sometimes it helps you to see there isn't enough and I need to earn more. Sometimes that makes you a little bit crazy You have to figure out what works with your personality. I'm absolutely convinced after all these years that 90% of success is right here between the ears on top of the lower, caveman brain, the animal brain, the reptile brain. Okay. And it's those fear response, those emotional responses.
Okay.
And I really truly believe that that's where success lies. And so I know that sounds a little negative, but the truth is most of the time we're not even aware of what we're doing. So the first thing is awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to shift. But there are things that we know. Stanley from The Millionaire Next Door was really the first to drill down into this in great detail as to how financially successful people, financially free people think in comparison to the rest of us.
Yeah.
Did you read the book?
No, I have not read the book yet. I need to get, I have it on Audible.
Okay.
I haven't listened to it yet.
It is 30 years old now. I hate to admit this. It is 30 years old and it's still relevant. There's a book called The Millionaire Mindset written by the same man. And the reality is, once you start to see it, you can't unsee it. You'll see what happens. And when you sort of think about what you think about money and how you view it. Okay, so I'll give you an example. And I hate to say this because I love women, but I never want to hear a woman who isn't in a public facing industry tell me that her Louis Vuitton purse is an investment.
You know what? Okay. I'm gonna let that one. I'm gonna let you say that.
Okay.
I'm not getting in trouble.
But here's the point. Okay. I understand there are some people who really feel they need to project success, and there are some industries where that's required. But for most of us, that's not true. Okay. And most of the people that I've met who have built out that kind of success, unless they've been in that industry, in those industries, they don't need it. And you take a look and you say to yourself, okay, and I was told this when I was at Merrill Lynch when I first started, dress the way your prospective clients dress. And I looked at her and I said, my prospective clients that are women buy clothing from, shops that are a little bit old for me at the time. And she looked at me and laughed. She said, you have to wear something that looks like something they would buy. You have to communicate with them that you share their values. And it wasn't the most expensive stuff. It wasn't the designer stuff, but it wasn't stuff that, if that makes sense. At that time, 20 years ago, it was Talbot's. Okay. Which is not something that I would think I would want to wear on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But a lot of the successful women who were about 60, ages 60 plus, wore those clothes. Okay.
Did you end up doing it?
A little bit, not much.
Okay.
Not much. I found my own style, and I find that I have to have my own vibe. Okay. So, but you have to communicate value. And the truth is that people who are financially successful respect the money they've earned.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, one of the problems that people have when they really, really earn money is that it's very difficult for them to communicate those same values to their children and their grandchildren. So the joke is that it's not generational wealth or long-term wealth or old money until it's made it past the third generation. We tend to make things too, Go
ahead.
We make things too easy for our children and our grandchildren.
Okay. That's what I thought I heard. So I wanted you to say it again. I agree. Especially, I think people say it started with Generation X.
No.
You think before?
Oh, absolutely. I think this has been going on for a long time. I
made it too easy.
Been going on for a long time.
So can that be corrected, or is it just kind of the way it is now?
It absolutely can be corrected. It's a question of looking at people and saying, statistically, you're not going to have as much as your grandparents, and your children are going to struggle. So if that's not the future you want, let's talk about what you have. And the other piece is, I worked with one client who at one point was a single mom. She pushed herself through a graduate school and she made a lot of money, but she also invested extraordinarily aggressively across many different industries.
Okay.
So she's been very successful. And she realizes when we were looking at her financial plan as she's retired, she realizes she has a lot of money. So she wants to contribute to her grandchildren's education. but she made the decision. And I suspected it was going to go this way. And she didn't want to pay for it all. She wanted to pay for the tuition, a portion of the expense. She wanted them to have skin in the game.
Right. Yeah.
She wanted to take the edge off of it and help, but she wasn't going to do for them.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that.
I liked it too. I suspected that was where she was going to go with it. And I was thrilled that I was right, that was where she was going.
Yeah, I like that. You really need to have some skin in the game, especially if you don't know the value of a dollar. You know, I mean, it's to have that skin in the game. It makes you work for whatever it is that's happening. And I think, especially with education, it's a good way to go.
The way I would frame it, and this is how I frame this with everybody, is that we were created to be free, but freedom is just a synonym for responsible. We choose how we respond. Okay. And that flows into, that's the spiritual piece. And it flows into how we manage our bodies, our minds, our emotions, our relationships, and our money, because it's just a tool. The other piece that I will walk people through is, and I heard this from a trainer on iFit, and he was talking about it physically.
Mm-hmm.
And it made so much sense to me because, one, we encounter the world initially physically.
Mm-hmm.
And you start off with function. Everything has to be functional. You go to health when everything's functional and working together.
Mm-hmm.
You then go to fitness, which is defined as the ability to handle the load. And then you go to performance. And when you realize that that's a framework that you can use for your money for anything, okay, so you start off and you say, what's going on in your money life? If you're back in that functional stage, fine, own it. Feel the pain and say, okay, I'm going to move forward. The only way to resolve the anxiety is movement.
Mm-hmm.
You move over to health, where you get things working together. And I define financially fit when you're able to handle the load of your obligations and fund your goals.
I like that.
Okay. And then performance is when you have that wealth that's feeding you so that you don't have to work. Work becomes optional at that point.
Yeah, I really like that.
I want everybody to get there.
I'm working my way there. Let's talk about myths. What are some of the biggest myths about entrepreneurship and wealth?
Oh boy, it starts off with that income is wealth. It starts
kind
off
of
with
talked about.
I have complete control, that I don't have to do the planning, that I have time. Okay. The graveyards are full of people who thought they had more time than they did.
Mm.
Okay. And then there's also the problem. And it's really what I look at and I say to people, most people who wind up in my office or, working with me as a financial advisor, not the coach, have had a financial relationship go bad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what I say to people is, this is a professional. Instead of hiring your buddy, you need to stop and think who understands you, who respects you, and who is able to meet your needs. But ultimately, no one should care more about your financial condition than you do.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. The other thing that people do, and it's a problem, is they use their corporate bank account to pay personal expenses, and they have money going both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes a real issue. You need to create a hard and fast wall between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, especially entrepreneurs in the beginning, like you said, building the bootstraps, bring yourself up from the bootstraps and then trying to figure it out. But I think that lesson right there is it's imperative because
Right.
I mean, you got crossing monies and things like that. It's a horror. It's a horror.
It is. And you see it, you realize it, people make mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to learn to pay the penalty for the mistake and move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it may mean you may have to close down an LLC and open up a new one. It's a pain in the butt. It's
Mhm.
expensive.
Yeah, it is.
But when you feel the pain of the consequence, that can inspire you to not do it again.
Yeah.
So
Just don't do it again. Right. So I know that. So first of all, thank you again, because I know you're not, all the way there with everything because you were sick. So I'm going to just ask you a couple more questions. If
Go
you don't
for
mind. We're talking about, you talked about tools, practical tools and everything. What's one financial system or habit that changed everything for you and your clients?
Oh boy. What I want people to do is first thing that I ask them to do is we get organized. Okay. We put things into place so that we can see what they have and they can see what they have. Whether we manage it or it's managed elsewhere or it's split apart, we want to see to make sure that it works together.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that I work with my clients in a huge way is I want them to understand the system they're in so that they can make decisions from a place of strength.
Mm.
So what that means frequently is, let's stop and think. Do you understand what they're saying to you? Are they using real language? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make sense? And so I work with them on that. Now, on the planning side, I love using the system to maximize people's chances of success. So I will look for every way possible to do things like Roth contributions, backdoor Roth contributions. If people are employed and they can afford it, I want them to do the mega backdoor contributions. I want people to use the system as it's built
Mm-hmm.
to fund and fuel their future. So for example, if they can afford to pay the higher deductible and they have the money to do it, I want them to put money into the HSA. Why? Because that becomes extraordinarily powerful. One, if you have a medical event that's an emergency, you can use that to pay your deductible
Mm-hmm.
and then use your long-term care, long-term disability to pay for your living expenses while you recover. And then all of a sudden, the money isn't what's first on your mind.
Right.
Okay. But I work with people to really use the system as much as possible. And with entrepreneurs, I want them to put money into retirement. I don't want them. I understand there's a push and pull between the accountant and the advisor. If both are competent, should be working together. And so what that means is the accountant is going to want to lower the income to lower the tax, but you also need to save for the future.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of entrepreneurs don't put money away for retirement. And that becomes a huge vulnerability. So you have that push pull. And ultimately, the client has to decide that they need to be able to pay tax at some point so that in the future they don't have to work. They want work to be optional. And then the other piece is you have to understand the retirement account and the retirement system and all the different types of accounts, make them work together. And then you have decisions like if I have a solo entrepreneur and they're in a business where they could get sued, or if their biggest liability, for example, was somebody, she realized her biggest liability would be the car and having a major lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
You need to really look and see where the money is and then say, well, maybe we need to mitigate for that. So we work through that. We work through the whole system. That's part of the reason why, for example, if money's in a 401k and you have a lawsuit,
Mm-hmm.
it can be almost near impossible to get into that money and have somebody have to pay that out. Think O.J.
Mm-hmm.
Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody could touch his retirement money.
Yeah.
Okay. So no, you're not O.J. Simpson. And I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that, use the system legally and lawfully to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Don't do O.J. Simpson things, but you get the idea.
But how he did with his
Right.
finances.
I mean, I don't think he thought about that. Right. And I don't think he thought about that. I don't think he planned that, but that was just a consequence of somebody saying, this is retirement money.
Mm-hmm.
This is pension money. You can't touch it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
The law was written in such a way that they didn't want a lawsuit to prevent somebody who's 60 or 70 from being able to live.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's another reason why it's sort of you have to use the system and the protections to make it work. I never want to see people say, oh, I want things so consolidated so that there's only one IRA. Well, if you've been contributing money and then to an IRA, but then you have this 401k money, you really shouldn't be commingling it. You need to keep it separate. Okay. So you can have a rollover, but label it rollover. So it's really, you have to learn to manage the system. I want you to be proactive and not afraid of it. And if you talk to somebody who's not going to help you actually learn it, you need to shift.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Monica, I have many questions, but I'm going to spare your voice.
I'm sorry. I'm losing it, aren't I?
No, you're fine. But I know that, you're dealing with something, and I just want to be gracious about
I appreciate that. Thank you.
what's going on with you, and maybe we'll just do a part two with
I
you.
love that. Anytime you want me back, I'm happy to come.
That's cool. That's awesome. We'll definitely put that in the books to have you back, because what you're sharing um, is a lot of information that is solid, first of all, and a lot of information that people don't necessarily know or privy to. And to have that kind of knowledge in someone's arsenal can really save them one day from, whatever it may be that could, kind of just mess them up financially. But,
Right.
using some of your advice could, really turn tables for someone's life. And so for you to share that's gold right there. So
Thank you.
how does someone get connected with you, in touch with you, use your services, all that good stuff?
Okay, so I want to make a couple of offers. And here's the thing. If you're an entrepreneur and for your people and you just want to talk it through, I'm willing to give you a consultation, no expectation. Some people may want to participate in the academy. Some people may need an advisor. Some people may just need a half an hour to just talk something through.
Mhm.
So I'm willing to give your people, I'll send you a link and they can log on to that and we'll schedule some time. I'll block out some time that's just for them. And then the second thing is, I've noticed a lot of people are struggling with goals. And I looked at April 15th and I thought, while sick, okay, this is an accountability day. How far are you on your goals? Have you achieved what you intended to achieve? And I used to run a goal group, and I'm going to bring it back where I bring in some of the psychology of actually achieving the goals and how to work with yourself with tools, completely pitch free. There's nothing else going on with that. But if people would like to attend that, they can attend that. I will I'll give you the link so that they can do that.
Okay.
Other than that, they can reach out to me via email at any time, or they can log on to our websites. So, but I'll send you those links.
All right, perfect. That's perfect. And we'll have that in the description. Good. Thank you so much for being here and sharing what you shared, even through the issues that you have with your health and everything. So it's a pleasure to have you here. And as we do weekly, we have a question of the week. And our question of the week with this is, what's one small financial or mind shift you've made or want to make this year to build a stronger future for yourself? So leave those in the comments and get to it. And as we always say around this time, let's make thriving our new normal. Again,
Awesome.
thank you, Monica.
You.
You're welcome.
And I apologize for my appearance, guys. I'm sorry I came on like this.
You look fine.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Before you go, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being a part of the Thrivewell journey. Every time you show up here, you're choosing growth, clarity, and the deeper work of becoming who you're meant to be in this world. And if you're ready to reconnect with what truly lights you up, I created something powerful that can help you. It's called the Empowered Path, 7 days to reclaim your purpose and passion. It's a beautifully designed, guided workbook that walks you through a week of powerful prompts, clarity building tools, and real mindset shifts. Now, you can get instant access to it today. It's a small investment for a huge return. Your energy, your clarity, your alignment. And if you want to take it deeper, check this out. I'm offering a limited number of free 30-minute purpose coaching sessions. No pressure, no pitch, just space for you to reconnect with your direction, your gifts, and what's next. So you can grab the guide and book your session at the link in the show notes. Let's not just go through the motions. Let's really walk this path on purpose. I appreciate you. And like we always say, let's make thriving our new normal. And I'll talk to you soon.